Hello.
What happened?
I was logged out, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah, even me, I was locked out. I'm back.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's my it's my power went off and the internet router also went off.
All right.
So I'm connected on the phone. The issue of
All right.
is everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we can continue, Engineer.
Well,
I hope.
I can go ahead.
Yeah, Engineer Abira, please continue. Collins, mute your mic.
Gunshots. Piercing, close gunshots.
Okay. Engineer Abira.
Yes.
Abira, the floor is
Hello,
yours.
Diana. Engineer.
Hi, I can hear you.
May I continue or I wait?
Abira, the floor is yours. Please do, please do.
All right. Engineer OGAI, you're part of the strategy committee that actually developed the new strategy 2019-2023. But we're now in 2020. I am seeing actually aspirants coming up with proposals, things they want to do. What have you done? What has the previous council done to make sure actually the proposals, the pillars, the manifestos of everyone coming in is aligned to the strategy? Because however, it goes against the whole grain of putting in effort, putting in resources, of coming up with a new strategic document. And the last question still on the strategy. The document is 2019 to 2023. We are now in 2020 and we are planning to do a ceremonial launch of the same document in 2020. Why are we behind on the document? You see, and then how do we make sure we want to fill in the gap that we've lost? Question. That's all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Engineer. I appreciate the question. The first thing is, since we took the whole strategic planning process through stakeholders, and since it was adopted, I think it is an official document which should be implemented. It forms part of the policy documents of the institution, regardless of whichever team comes in. That is what I would say, because it was officially adopted by all of us as members. I would then think that whoever comes in would then have to align even their manifestos and their policies to that strategic plan. Yes, in terms of timing, we had hoped to launch it earlier, but we have had quite a number of activities. I think we wanted to launch it during the conference in Mombasa in September. We weren't able to do that, but what I would say is that the strategic plan is a live document, and the strategic planning is a process, not an event. So what we've done, the team that developed the strategic plan was converted to an implementation committee, and that is also under the chairmanship of Engineer Sharma. And we have actually prepared an end of year, a quarter report, just to show where we are. And I think we've been implementing part of the issues that we have implemented part of it. Maybe not 100%, but I think there's been some implementation. We were not quite waiting for the launch, but the launch would be good. It's symbolic. It gives a bit of motivation and also interest. And I think we still want and intend to hold that, because then we can get even better partnerships and collaborations with our, those people who we think we want to get into those partnerships with. Once they know we have a strategic plan, it's easy for them to pick out which areas they want to collaborate with us. So I think, to me, the document is live. It is under implementation. That is how we have taken it, and it is a fully adopted document. Thank you.
Any other question?
Any other question? Or comment?
Engineer,
Yes.
there is a situation whereby members have been mistreated, members have been frustrated. For example, a scenario that happened, I think it was last year, when there was a demonstration that was organized by Engineer Sharma following the outcry at SGR. Now, the demonstration was thwarted. We assume that many people, because they're working in the civil servant, they don't want to sanction such demonstrations. Now, if this happens and you are a member, you are elected, you are a honorary secretary at the society. If a situation like this happens, whereby young engineers, even if they are not members of IEK, but they are young engineers, they're under the same profession that you're protecting, will you take action? How and which action will you take if we cannot demonstrate? Which actions will you take on our behalf? The other thing is, I wanted you to give your input on it, is now we have been talking a lot of policies here. Most of these policies are on paper, and we have the law of the land, that is, we already know which ones are applicable to us and which ones are not applicable to us. Why can't we stop talking about policies in the boardrooms and go and have actions outside? Because an engineer is not somebody who sits in office all the time. We are people, yes, we design in offices, in our small laboratories, and then we go out and do things. We should stop this boardroom meeting and policies. What are you putting in place that we will stop these policies and boardroom meetings to have our 90% or say 70% on the field and 30% on doing other policy bureaucratic paperwork?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I think this is very relevant because I'm a civil servant or a public servant. So first of all, I think it's the issue about the demonstration. I think it was in very good faith, but I think we have to agree. Are we going to go confrontational way, or we can have persuasion? I think it all starts, there's a whole spectrum or a continuum. You can sit, persuade, engage, or you can go confrontation, and you would have disputes. So I think along that spectrum, and I think that is also encouraged with even with the FIDIC documents, that we should first try amicable settlement. So for me, you will probably find that I tend to be before we go for confrontation, the first thing would be, can we write out a very well prepared statement about the issue and our concern? I see many other organizations. The other day, I think I saw one from the Human Resources Institute, when one of their members is being disciplined because of revealing, I think, on the KQ case about the coronavirus. I think those letters do have impact, and they do protect members. So I think if we come up with a statement, which is what we should be doing, we shouldn't be shy, we should be able to write. We have the facts, we should be able to put it down and put it in a sober way to the policymakers or the people who need to take action.
Engineer, let me cut you a bit before you continue.
Yes.
Now, look at it this way. There is a book written by Thomas Kuhn, and it talks about there's a crisis, the cycle of paradigms crisis. There's a crisis, and the crisis was caused. So there was a situation whereby, yes, it might have not been true, but it was in a public domain that young engineers and technologists at SGR were being mistreated at SGR. Now, there is an outcry. At that moment, we are allowed to have both scenarios, whereby we have a public demonstration, and we can also, as people are having a public demonstration, then there's also boardroom meeting so that things are sorted out. But you see, in this case, the demonstration was thwarted. We never had any information from the chairman, the outgoing chairman, Engineer Collins. We never had information from the secretary, the outgoing secretary, Engineer Matalanga. Engineer Sharma was we can say that he was gagged. He hasn't spoken about it ever since. So we need to know, what is the union going to do so that in case of such an outcry, engineers are not being taken seriously in Kenya right now because of such things. We are not talking. We are sitting back and letting young boys to be messed up. Young boys and girls don't go to engineering because of this.
Okay. I think Engineer Ndolo, I'm also a parent. So obviously, I'm a Kenyan. So is one discriminatory or harassment is not something that we would want to see happen, and we should be able to protect our own. So I think we were not in doubt that the intentions were correct. They were good. But as I say, I think there's procedurally, it is better to first start with a statement. Once you have a statement and no action is being taken, you can move to the demonstration. I'm only saying there's a continuum. I think the only reason that Engineer Sharma demonstration did not go on, it was not sanctioned by the same council. It was, I think, not agreed upon as a policy, because we are there to make policy, isn't it? As a council, that is our job. And so we have to sit down and agree, this is a crisis and this is what we're going to do. And at that time, I think the demonstration was being made outside of the council decision-making processes. I have no doubt, actually, the Constitution also allows us to demonstrate, to picket, and to do all of that. But I personally would think that the first, before we escalated, would be, do we have an engagement with whoever is supposed to take action? I think that's what should have happened, including that same contractor, the contractor. Probably a few of us should have gone. And that's what I'm saying. I think what is also happening is, I admit we have also had very low capacity as a council. Our secretariat, we just started beefing it up. So quite a number of these issues have been taking a bit long. I would rather we start working with a far bigger outreach and teams. If we agree this is a team that looks at issues to do with the collapsing buildings, they're the rapid response team, they come up with their draft statement, I think then things will move. As you say, maybe we've not had that proper, I think we've been a bit thin on the ground. And I think that those are the things the strategic plan on visits also talks about that, but how are we going to improve the capacity of our secretariat? We need to have those in place, then we can move a bit faster. And I know that is one of that is one of our limitations that we've been having.
Any
Policies,
other
The second question was policies, and I totally agree with you. I cannot agree more that Kenya is accused of having very, very nice policies. Even the strategic plan is beautiful. But it's one thing to have that, it's another thing to have implementation. And that's what I was saying, and I think I'm agreeing with you. As much as we need, to me, our focus of the council should be about making strong policy directives and decisions. The other things about going out, being in the field, we should be having teams that are able to do that work for us, because we can't be everywhere. We can't say we're the same ones who are going to run now from here to Kisumu because there's a crisis there. Then we come, we say, okay, there's another crisis happening in Nyandarua, we run again over there. I think, and I have seen very good, engagement by members. The members themselves are so interested. They want to participate in the affairs of their institution. They want to influence what is happening to their brothers and sisters out there. So all these societal issues belong to all of us. So I think going forward, we need to have our thematic groups, teams in place, and that is envisaged in our strategic plan. With those teams, if we have clear mandates of what they're to do, actually, I think we've gone very far under Engineer Sharma. We've actually agreed on the thematic areas that we want to first set up our teams. With those teams in place, I think what we need to do is immediately an issue comes, we channel it to them. Please go find out what is happening over here. Give us a position, give us a policy statement, give us whatever it is that we need to do. And then we can also meet up with the policymakers, because I think you also can't start engaging with somebody without having the facts on the ground. The other thing that we need to do, because I think policies, are not only done formally, it's not what we write. We need to have influence in a more informal way. I think we've not explored that potential very well as a council. I think we have very many people in very influential positions. We have former MPs with us. We have MPs in parliament who are engineers. And we have men and women of goodwill. How are we engaging with them so that we have the necessary support to push our case? I want to think that's another area. We must tap in, all of us, and the house must be more open to all of us, because as I said, we can't have a few people
I wanted to ask about the idea of having graduates undergo compulsory let me call it industrial training, 1 year training after graduating, just like medical doctors,
yes.
Medical students. I wanted to know if there's any progress in terms of that, because I think it's been mentioned over and over again.
I think as let me say, mentioning it over again is I think you've seen the government itself has started an internship program for graduates, all graduates, and it was yes, and so I think that's a similar program we want. We want to engage with our. I mean, we need to come up with one specific for graduates. EBK have started one. I think it's very limited in its scope. I think the numbers that they're carrying forward are few. It's all about budgeting and financing, because unless they're coming as volunteers, they need to be paid a stipend or an allowance. And if we count that, that is what is not probably budgeted for by governments. Same with private sector, because they only do work which after they're engaged by most of them by the public sector. What we want is a framework. I think we want to develop a framework which then we can also ask government to set aside percentage of all the infrastructure. I think it's 200 billion or so per year. We should set aside a dedicated amount. I think, in my view, that's my own proposal. We should lobby for that. Just the way they have the one for, I think, catering and levy trusts, something. They have quite a number under other industries. I think they need to have that. It is important because as long as we don't have our graduates the opportunity to exercise or to trade, to do what? To work in the areas of their training, then we'll always have a backlog. I don't know if I've answered you, but I think we are all committed. I'm very committed to trying to get a well laid out program which we can sell and have resources allocated for that program.
Engineer, maybe to push on it, also. Last year there was advertisement and EBK called for graduates to apply. Maybe, do you have information how far that thing has gone? Because people complain they have never been given feedback whether they are going to go for the graduate internship thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's another question here. Somebody is saying, I would like to hear the opinion of the engineer on the current application form in specific for GEs. Will she be interested to revise them and capture the modern data? And the forms seems to be very old and outdated. That's one form. Like IEK is not up to date with the forms and the details, because it's still reading, even EBK is still reading ERB on the forms, if you can check. Another one is saying, in your opinion, why has it taken so long for IEK to realize the significance of graduate engineers in its activity? Another one from Gitonga is, what is your opinion on having online PPI seminars? This would cut costs and time. And at the same time, I would also like, when you're answering about the PPI, kindly also respond in terms of why is this that IEK is charging 18,000, yet Engineer Abdi and the colleagues at Nakuru managed to host at 5,000 per applicant.
Okay. Thank you for those. Can I take those ones?
You can continue now.
Thank you so much. I think on the EBK question, yes, I think the program has actually commenced. I think it was towards the end of last year, should be in September, October there or so, or thereabouts. I actually attended the inauguration of the first cohort. In my view, they look like they were about 50, 70 or so. This is being handled by EBK. I can try and get you more details and we can post it up probably on the Telegram group. I can ask Engineer Grace to give us more details. But as far as I know, they have received the funding and the program has actually started. But in terms of the phasing, how many cohorts they're going to take and how long it's going to take, I really don't have the details, but I'll talk to Engineer Grace. I think she's the one who's under the director for capacity building. I'll talk to her to just give us a small brief on that. I agree on the redesigning of forms. I think it happens all the time that things get overtaken with time and we keep using things that are even irrelevant or need to be updated. For me, I'm all for that. We would update forms and we would try to go as much as possible online. I think after all, even government is going online. If it is now you're applying for your logbook, it's online. So I don't see that being a problem. That is a simple matter. It can be taken up and it should be taken up. In fact, not even by the next council, by this particular council. I will take it up with the HONSEC. If it is IEK forms that need to be updated, we are going to do, I think that we should be able to redesign the forms. Then I agree the appreciation of the graduate engineers, and I think all the other members, graduates, associates, companions, I think IEK has not quite appreciated. As I said, we have vast talents. For me, I get impressed by even this, what is happening today. Having a webinar is something that we have leaped miles ahead. We never used to have such things. So the more we involve people, the richer, the better product that we end up getting. And I think that appreciation is now coming in. And in my view, it is changing. I like the way, the model of the South Rift. I'd like to congratulate that team, I think, which is led by Engineer Kamau. They are actually showing us that there's a lot more flexibility, even in the way we've been running our programs. Because I think this saying that we need to have everybody involved, because that is also part of mentorship. In fact, for me, I find it hard to start stating I've mentored you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because really it's about how you interact, what useful information you're able to give, avail, provide to somebody who needs it at the right time, and then they're able to grow. So I think the significance of the participation of graduates is very much welcome, and I want to think that is the council you're dealing with. And I think it is not even, I'm not saying that is not even a promise for tomorrow. That is an appreciation that this particular council that is in place under Engineer Collins Juma and also Engineer Matalanga has appreciated, because I think you've seen we have graduate engineers in our subcommittees, but I think we need to increase that and we need to engage more. Online seminars, I think I can only say yes, yes, yes. I've also been very fortunate in a program I have been doing it's based in Brussels, but 3/4 of the courses I do are online. I think even if you, so that I think it's just the way of the world. It's like now sending money any other way than using an M-Pesa. For me, I don't see that being a problem. I think it is good. It's going to help bring down costs. It's going to help reach members who are very far from Nairobi, so we can decentralize our services. This is even in constitutional, the devolution and the decentralization of services. Finally, on the costs, I think we've had the outcry actually about the costs of the PIPs. We are actually looking at even redesigning the content and quality of the PIPs, because when we get our graduates or other members applying for registration, we still find their lapses. As much as we see there's been an improvement, we are going to continue to improve on the quality. I think the looking at the price is something, as I told you, we are only trying to break even. I think it's a question of looking at what are the inputs. Some of the inputs might also be that, and I think there's been a complaint, why do we take people to high-end hotels? Maybe that's something we should review. If that brings down the costs, we don't have to eat very high-end food for it to bring down the cost. So I think that is something that we are taking positively. We've also similarly done as a branch for South Rift. I think we've also done a few PIPs for specific targeted groups at a lower cost, and we're going to continue. I think that's something we need to look at, because members we need to deliver, we need to not make cost a barrier for anybody's professional growth as much as it is possible, while appreciating, of course, that the council needs to also get an income to run its day-to-day operations. Thank you so much.
So D, you can go next. D, please unmute your microphone and ask. Yeah. D, can anybody hear her or him, because I cannot?
I can hear some noise from the background.
Okay, so as she sets up, I would love to ask a question. You mentioned about, or if I'm not wrong, you mentioned about people with persons with disabilities or people with special needs. How will you engage them more? Because I've attended engineering conferences and tech conferences and also spoken with at most conferences. And one thing I noticed at the end of the year when I was also doing my personal review, like I don't see them even in conferences. Do we actually have engineers in IEK that have special needs? How have you enhanced the inclusivity, and how will you also enhance it in future?
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very, very, to me, that is something that I think is a lapse, to be honest. Most of us, as long as we are not in a certain demographics, or we are very blind to the requirements of other people. For the moment, I think we have started with the youth and the women's chapter. Those are trying to address the special groups that we have amongst ourselves and trying to encourage more. For the persons with disability, I am aware of a few engineers have various disabilities, and we haven't actually engaged them formally. That's the way I see it. But I would want to say that we, at individual levels, we have been encouraging them. I know there's one gentleman who had applied and asked me, and he was blind. He was a graduate and he wanted a job. And I know because he has the certificate from the commission, I think at least we tried to use that. But to be very honest, he also never got the job, which I thought would be very obvious. It would have been very obvious. So I think what we're going to do and what we need to do, whichever, we need to have these diversity requirements. We need to be able to monitor them. We need to encourage, I think when we do our adverts, for whether it is for procurement, whether it is for recruitments, we need to say that persons with disabilities are also women, youth, and persons with disability are encouraged to apply. And when they do apply, really, we should try to bring them on board. I think what we also need to do as a council, which we've not done, is a census. We need to send out a census and identify those people with special needs and how we can then incorporate them in all our activities, because I totally agree. I think that's one blind side we have that I have not seen, that we haven't quite involved the persons with disabilities to my.
Right. That's fine.
Another comment I would love to add is that you can also engage universities to ensure that they have whatever they are using, their facilities are also accessible by persons with disability. Because if a student cannot access that, I don't know how many participants in this webinar had actually a person with disability in their class, or even their rooms were accessible. The site, going to the sites and everything. I didn't.
Then
so
I had
it's
10.
also, oh, interesting.
I had 10. It's good that it's different that I studied outside.
Where did you study? Engineer Ndolo, where did you study? Is it in Kenya?
No.
It's yeah, so it's a learning we should get from you. Like, how did your university actually incorporate that? Yeah, Dee, you can go ahead.
To add on what Diana is saying, EBK is not going to institutions. Why is it hard for IEK to go to institutions? Because we know very well that at the universities, for example, the chairman of the department, most of them are members of IEK and EBK. Why can't IEK have an agreement with the departments directly, so that, because student membership is free?
Yes, yes.
And they can register the students from the university directly, have an office. Like, I'm a member of IEEE, and IEEE, it's free, but the students pay a small amount just for paperwork and so that they can also get IEEE.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so that the members can get papers, journals every time and again. So what IEK should be able to or can we count on you to challenge the IEK to go to his universities to do that on our behalf and have more students come in? D, can you come in, please? D, come in, and then we do that in 5 minutes. Then engineer can give us closing remarks, because we have taken almost more than 1.5 hours of today.
Okay.
D, your mic is on, but I can't hear you. All right, let me mute you and somebody else. There's a question here from Bernard. Bernard, if you can see the question, on the topic of welfare for engineers, okay, D, can you come in?
It's too noisy.
Okay, I think you can go ahead with Bernard's question as he sorts out.
On the topic of welfare of engineers, what measures did you intend to take? Do you intend to take on matters, engineers, minimum pay in the country? As at now, we engineers are earning as low as 15K a month. I think he's talking about graduate engineers being paid low salary and all that.
Yes. Okay. Where do I start? Where do I start with this question on the welfare of engineers? Actually, I agree with you. I think people have to get a decent earning, because that is part of job dignity. I think the initial program for the internship was also the graduates were being underpaid, but I think now there's a directive. I think we pay, I think it's 25,000. I think these are the areas that we need to actually have regulations about. I totally agree, because I think somebody must make, at least once you're already engaged, something that is reasonable. So unfortunately, I'll just use the same word, which has been, I think we need to come up with a policy, draft a policy, and try and get it adopted for the sector.
I think there was a policy. Engineer, there was something that IEK did on engineers' fee, and I think it should also be able to capture graduate engineers. So maybe, can we count on you to push it?
Oh, definitely. In fact, I was going to give another one. Now, that is the scale of fees.
Yes.
The scale of fees is something that is very, very urgent in my view. Actually, we also find when we want to procure individual consultants now in the public sector, it gets very hard that they start competing. They're all competent and they're competing on price. I don't think that is right. So we would want the scale of fees, which is already there for the lawyers and many other professionals. The engineers should also have a scale of fees, so that you just go and you'd pay against that. And I think, as you're saying, that helps to regulate. Unfortunately, I think EBK have been pushing it. As far as I know, they have also been pushing it. But I think it's the competition authority who do not want to have, they're saying people should compete. But I think that discussion is still going on. But I think that's one of the areas I really want to push for. It's actually affecting us even in the public sector. Because when you engage people and you tell them now compete for this job, you get people giving you ridiculous prices, and you even feel sorry for them when you engage them as a senior engineer, and you can see you're paying him, really, really, really pretty low. And I think once we pay, we need to have to regulate on the payments, on the remunerations for engineers and professionals. I think that should be the case, and we will push for it, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other question? Bernard is also taking. There's another question from Bernard again. He sent me privately. What has IEK done to intend to do for the formation of Kenya Union? That is the union that is championed by Martin Aluga.
Yes.
And engineering institutions need to fight. And then there's a question from Diana. If you click on and everyone will also see it. My question is, in the aim of IEK for G is to be working under a PE. Considering there are fewer P's than G's, and even more so, not all engineering companies have a PE. Don't you think there's need for re-evaluate? This needs to be re-evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
as you answer that, then I would think we will be also, you answer the questions and then you give us your closing remarks as you ask for your members for their votes rather.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yes, I think this organization, the Kenya National Union of Engineers, is spearheaded by Martin Aluga. I am aware of it. I think we have seen the work that he's doing. I know he's pushing for a remuneration for, I think he's representing the graduate engineers, if I'm not wrong. I think he's fighting for remuneration.
He's fighting for everybody, I think. For everybody.
Oh, it is not.
It's not just graduate engineers, it's for everybody. And then there's another question here that somebody is saying, you answer it together with that. Don't you think it is double standards for a civil servant to vie for a position in IEK and cannot go on demonstration or stand for the other suffering members of the profession?
Okay, let me start with the first one as I was, and then I'll answer the next two. As I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with having the union. This is, I think, in respect of our constitution, we have as a freedom of association. What I would wish myself to see is that we have areas of collaboration. Because we have different agencies, and that is what we need. We need to, if we're working for the same good, I have absolutely no problem with Aluga's agency. Probably what we need and what has not happened is that we need to sit down with him and agree on areas of commonality. Even if we need to support one another in one or two areas, we have no problem. But again, we cannot also have a multiplicity of bodies if we are all going to be doing the same thing. So we need to be very clear on our different mandates. And I also would like to say, if there are members who are in the union,
she's still talking.
It means as IEK, we have also failed our members. And that is why I'm saying we need to engage with Aluga, find out what are the areas of concern, which are the areas where we have commonality, and as long as we're not duplicating our functions, I would be quite comfortable with it. I think we did the same. Let me give a good example, a living example. Under the Women Engineers chapter, we have also very, very many other bodies who are mentoring young women engineers, like the WEMEng.
All right, next.
Next. The PE, GE, I think it's just the structure of engineering. I think one PE can manage more than one, can certainly manage more than one PE at the same time. And therefore, I don't think that should be a challenge. My biggest challenge, as you say, is that we have some of our members, some of our GEs go and work for engineering companies where there is no PE. And that presents a special problem, but I've seen quite a number of them now. And you know, how do you also present, what's your designs, who is checking for you? For me, how I tried to overcome it, I worked, the first place I worked, we had very little work. So yes, ours was not the problem. The PEs were there, but there was no work. I did PJs Gioni so that I could get the experience instructions. Move on, I went to another second employer. Second employer, now we had we were doing the engineering work. Like this, we were doing engineering work, but for some reason, most of these were all graduates. There was no value in becoming a PE. I actually only ended up getting a water engineer to mentor me and to complete my forms for me. But what I did myself was keep a log of what I'm supposed to do. So sometimes it comes down to that. If you're supposed to do a design to certain standard, it must be done. It must be done. So you still maybe can get a PE outside of your organization to guide you through. Because I think the biggest issue to me is actually getting the work that you need to do. Because once you have